I had a guy I worked with many years ago, and we used to have these departmental meetings, and he used to basically gently scold everyone throughout the meeting. Like somebody would say something and he'd be like, well, but have you ever thought about what do the Inuit think about this? But have you ever thought about the clean water and how we can, and it was always some sort of very righteous cause. And he would say it in this gentle sort of like, I want to take you by the hand and help you see the light kind of way, like he was on the mountaintop. And it was deeply annoying because you couldn't really sort of challenge him because he was so nice about it. And he was so virtuous that you always just felt like a heel, like saying like, well, I don't really care what, the people in Timbuktu think about this. He just ended up coming off like a jerk. But slowly it began to occur to me that he was in this like velvet glove sort of way. He was bullying everybody in the room. And it was a strange kind of soft power play where at the end of it, he would always be in a position of authority, sort of reminding people to be better than who they were. And it slowly drove me insane. And I want to sort of talk about the phenomenon of what I'll call the moral busybody. And so on today's episode, we're going to sort of get into this area and look at it really not just me whining about it, but look at what some philosophers have had to say about it and social theorists, and try to understand what's really going on here. Because I know you have somebody you work with who's like this too, and God bless it, you might be one of these people. In which case, listen up. And I'm sure like somebody on the internet is gonna basically lecture me about it too in the comments, and that's fine. And life online is like this a lot. Like, yeah, there's these angry screeds. Somebody below in the comments is gonna basically take me apart for something I said, or they don't like my tie. That's part of internet life, of course. But there's also the gentle scolding, where somebody's just gently and politely helping you. But also it's really like, I think it's a kind of gentle bullying too. It's this kind of scolding model of interaction. And that's what we want to basically get into today. So welcome to Professor Asma's Guide to Unusual Knowledge, also known by its acronym, PAGTUC. Maybe the original sort of moral busybody is the missionary. They've come all the way from another country to your land, and they're going to tell you that your gods are not as cool or as great as their gods. I can remember when I was in Southeast Asia and I was teaching at the Buddhist Institute in Cambodia. I would walk around and people, at that point there was very few Westerners there, this is a long time ago, and people would say to me, oh, when they met me, they were Khmer, Cambodian people, they'd say, oh, you must be a Christian missionary. And I was like, no, not really. I'm actually teaching Buddhism at the Buddhist Institute. And they were just like totally confused by this. But I did meet a lot of missionaries that first time I was there. And they generally had this feeling like they were going to help these local heathen to get to know the good God. And I know it was coming from a good place, but there's also something deeply obnoxious about just correcting people for their own good. That whole approach to life is this sort of moral busybody. And you want to save these people's souls, and you want to improve their habits and correct their politics and optimize their breakfast or whatever it is. And now don't get me wrong, I appreciate the moral passion, and I appreciate people wanting to be better. In fact, like civilization basically requires it. We need we need do-gooders. So I'm not saying we got to get rid of them altogether, but when the moral impulse gets kind of weaponized, it morphs into something very controlling, paternalistic, and occasionally unbearable. Especially like in online influencers and thought leaders who post threads about accountability while also selling, protein powder or whatever it is. Let's call all these people the virtue industrial complex. I really like this, the virtue industrial complex. Okay, so old Bertie, you may recall Bertrand Russell, that great philosopher of the 20th century, wrote a little piece called When Good Men Do Harm. And this is back in the 1920s. He didn't mean just men, he meant when good people do harm. And he basically, it's a kind of a little grenade of an essay. And he basically is saying these morally certified humans with sort of verified accounts can actually cause enormous damage. Russell says this, quote, "It may be doubted whether a good man does, on the average, any more good than a bad man," end quote. And what he's pointing out is that, like, good men, this is kind of a phrase that's often useful as like moral camouflage. And it can be sort of a smokescreen that allows others to operate unchecked. So like in politics, the good man sort of gives cover to the scoundrel. So it's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. Like in the party system, you'll have somebody come to the front and play the virtue saint while their colleague or partner is basically running roughshod over everyone, but can't be seen, is not as obvious, is a little bit hidden. So the smiling face on the billboard sort of hides the machinery of greed and control and conformity. And so picture a wholesome influencer earnestly telling you to be kind while their merch factory sort of underpays teenagers in another country. Russell's point sort of is about political partnerships that are sly like this, but also about the sly sort of deception that an individual can do. So Bertrand Russell thought that virtue without kind of self-awareness is a form of violence disguised as benevolence. And the digital age kind of supercharges this. In Russell's day, the good man might ruin a village policy meeting. Today, the good influencer can moralize to 10 million people before breakfast and ruin a career with a single call-out post. So we're living in an era where the power dynamic of the moral saint is really obnoxious. People will talk about this as kind of virtue signaling and canceling. We know that, but it's an old phenomenon just getting a kind of a new expression. Many people will know the writer of Narnia, and he's kind of sort of a Christian apologist, C.S. Lewis. He basically wrote a pretty funny line. He said, of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. Sorry, it's a really funny line. He says further, quote, "The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep." In other words, occasionally, the criminal type rests, and you can also sort of recognize, what they're up to. So that back to the quote, "But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience," end quote. So C.S. Lewis would rather face Elon Musk in full robber baron mode, because the robber baron really just wants your wallet, and the moral busybody wants your soul. They want your soul, your tweets, every bit of your last bite of cheesecake, whatever it is. All this in the name of helping you. So what's some of the psychology of the do-gooder? So consider the parental impulse kind of run amok. Many moral busybodies channel what Freud might call paternalistic or maternalistic aggression, the I know what's best for you drive. It's care laced with dominance. It's your mom's sort of put on a sweater energy, weaponized for ideology. And so a lot of these sort of online platforms, they basically reward moral performance. Every good deed is now a content opportunity. Here's a carousel post about how I overcame privilege by explaining it to you. It's not that the do-gooder doesn't believe it, it's that the line between virtue and branding has dissolved. Sort of related to this, I was looking at this wonderful essay by a philosopher, linguist named Roland Barthes. And Roland Barthes talks about professional wrestling as a kind of morality play. Everyone knows that professional wrestling is a kind of fake performance, but it's got the good guy is sort of turned into this kind of ideal of cartoon version of a good guy, and the bad guy is turned into a cartoon version of a bad guy, and then they sort of play out this really crude and very obvious morality play, sort of as a way of allowing us, the audience, to have a kind of catharsis and a sense of, like, you get a sense of justice being served and revenge, and maybe there's a, kind of an Aristotelian purging of difficult emotions. And I was thinking, so much of the internet is also a morality play like this. We should all be nicer to each other, and then everyone claps at the really obvious, ridiculously over-the-top virtuous statement that no one would disagree with, and yet we keep doing it over and over again and sort of know that it's a play too. Anyway, I digress. There's also a sense in which the moral do-gooder is engaged in a sort of form of passive-aggressive behavior. Like, they're basically saying, do what I say, I'm just concerned for you. It's moral blackmail in a cardigan. In social media, this becomes like, I'm disappointed in your silence, which translates roughly as kneel before the virtue industrial complex. The other sort of really irritating thing about the moral busybody is that it always simplifies the complexities of the world down to, just flattens them to moral problems that are basically binaries. Like, then they make easy memes like of good versus evil, woke versus being asleep, vegan versus monster. Complexity gets squeezed out because complexity doesn't trend. The systems don't sort of encourage nuance in any way. Okay, so what kind of trouble does all this actually cause? Let's tally the damage, shall we? 1, loss of autonomy. Others are helped out of their own freedom. It's sort of coercion wrapped in care. You're not free to be yourself or to express yourself because you're constrained by this kind of morality straitjacket. 2, kind of resentment and polarization, I think, increases. No one likes to be sermonized by strangers who use empathy as a kind of a cudgel or a crowbar or whatever it is. 3, hypocrisy. Do as I tweet, not as I do. This is sort of, in the virtue economy, it really sort of depends on appearing good, not necessarily being good. And that, I think, is real trouble. 4, emotional exhaustion. Online life has become a moral panic loop. Every day someone must be the villain of the hour. 5, institutional creep. Moral busybodies eventually find bureaucracies. We're just protecting you becomes sort of the policy, and the policy becomes punishment. So, C.S. Lewis feared an endless inquisition run by the kindest people you'll ever meet. We now call it the comments section. So are moral busybodies just leveraging their aggression through virtue? Partly yes. The aggression is socially laundered. I mean, you can't punch someone in public, but you can correct their worldview with moral fervor. And they kind of externalize inner anxiety, I think, this way. The world feels chaotic, so they impose rightness on it. They sort of need to create a sense of order, and that involves controlling you and what you believe and what you value. And because it's for your own good, they feel pure while also being controlling. So that's the perfect storm. And the algorithms learned very quickly that, like, moral condemnations basically keep us scrolling longer than moral complexity ever will. So influencers became sort of modern saints, glossy avatars dispensing daily absolution for a small fee. So as we draw to a close, am I blameless? No, of course not. I'm as bad as everyone else. Although I try to keep my moral scoldings to a minimum. Anyway, we could ask ourselves, okay, quietly, without tweeting it, when do I become a moral busybody? Sort of, when does my concern for others mask a desire to control them? When do I want to help because it soothes my anxiety about imperfection? Because the truth is, we all have a moral superego whispering, you know best. The real maturity, moral and psychological, is learning when to sort of shut up and let others live. the old live and let live motto. Next time you're about to correct someone online, pause. Ask, am I helping or just asserting? Is this about their good or my discomfort with ambiguity? And if you're not sure, maybe just post a cat instead. So the next time someone tries to fix you for your own good, smile gently, thank them, and then go live your life anyway. And if you find yourself doing it, then maybe log off for a little while, breathe, and let someone else's imperfection exist. The secret to happiness is to face the fact that the world is horrible, yet not be destroyed by that fact. And as C.S. Lewis might just sum it up, stop helping me so hard. All right, as usual, thanks for coming, subscribe, do all that stuff, and always stay curious.